Yes, welcome back, everybody. We're here on the Flex Success podcast. We have just caught our guest today, Alicia, from the Strong Woman Project, Picking Her Nose. Episode 6. I'm here with my co-host, Lizzy.
Hello. I don't know if it's fair to say Alicia from the Strong Woman Project. It's also Alicia from Strong Fit Magazine Australia.
Ooh.
And Alicia
sounds very flash.
It does sound very flash. Miss CEO/director.
It even says it on my business cards too, so it's official.
Excellent. Would you like to give our listeners an intro of who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is, as Lizzy and Dean said, my name is Alicia. I'm currently running the magazine Strong Fitness Magazine Australia. More importantly though, I'm a mum to 2 boys. I have a nearly 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. I am a partner to Stuart, and I am previously, for about 6 years, I was a female-specific strength and conditioning powerlifting coach, and I'm about halfway through an exercise and sports science degree. And as a nutshell, that is me.
Is that a 4-year degree?
They're 3. I've put it on hold with everything because apparently you can't do everything. So
So they say.
Tell a mum.
So they say.
True.
Yeah. So, 3-year degree.
Yeah, awesome. How are you finding it so far?
I really enjoyed the first lot. I guess there's a lot of components of it that are really good, like a lot of the things that you don't cover off in sort of day-to-day coaching, but there's a lot of elements of it that are fairly repetitive for what you kind of cover off or already know. Like, I think one of the last nutrition units I did, it was a pretty in-depth topic about creatine. So it's good when you're straight out of school and you're 17 and 18 and don't really understand, but it's, so it is really good. I love learning. Even though I'm not studying, every time I'm in the car, I still listen to podcasts. I also audiobooks. So I have this massive library of stored up audiobooks that I work my way through. I'm always learning. So, but it'd be good to go back. I'm looking forward to going back at some point.
So what was the reason that you went back to uni, or that you started this degree? What do you want to get out of it?
Like I said, I loved learning. I really, really enjoy learning. I was already coaching within powerlifting, and I guess I just wanted to learn more. I wanted to know more about what I was doing. I wanted to be, actually, there was probably a really big part being a female at the time a few years ago. I felt like one of the only ways I could be taken seriously or more seriously as a female would be by having actual credentials beside my name. Because although I knew as much and maybe sometimes over certain topics a bit more than some of my counterparts, there's still an element of, I don't even know how to explain it, but I definitely felt that I would potentially be taken more seriously having those credentials, whether that was me or whether that was industry. That was a lot of how I felt.
It's hard to say because as a female in industry as well, maybe I have some bias, but I do agree that to be taken as seriously as a male counterpart, you need to know a little more or work a little harder, because I think big buff males get credit or have some sort of industry, they seem reliable just because of the way they look. But as a female, it's much more difficult to look super duper impressive. Not that having a good physique correlates too much to your actual knowledge, because a lot of the time it could come down to having a good coach or just doing the right things but not really knowing how they work. So I would have
genetics.
And
even as a male in this industry though, if I said I had a moderate sized brain and a moderate sized body, I will still sometimes be subjected to being pushed to the side for somebody that has a miniature sized brain with a large sized body, even as a male. So then to flip that even into female, it's double time. So we see it all the time. It's definitely an unfortunate thing. I think it is primarily industry. And then when you say whether it's personal industry, personal is largely dictated by what you experience within the industry you work in. So it's still the crux is still the industry and the shift there, which is, I think, kind of what we're going to get into today as well.
Yeah, well, we want to talk about health and fitness and what that really means, and also what it doesn't mean, because Alicia and I, we've spoken about it before, that we find it really frustrating that instead of women kind of uplifting each other and uplifting themselves from continual education and creating value to other people, instead they take photos of their ass and post it up, and they'll get 400 likes, but when they put up a photo of, you know, I don't know, some food, and they talk about how this food fit into their diet, they're not going to get the same attention. And sometimes attention is tempting, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it
100% is.
It can drag females in the industry down when there starts to be created this new norm of what a woman should look like in order to be respected as a coach or a power lifter or a bodybuilder or something like that. And you cannot see fitness. I can have a client who's quite lean, let's say 15% body fat, but if we actually test the variables that indicate fitness, they could be quite low. Whereas I could have a client who's on the chubby side of things and she could outperform in fitness any day of the week, but you can't see that. It needs to be
absolutely
measured. So we're going to dive a little bit more into that. And I'd love it if you could start by sharing your experience with maybe something similar. Like, have you experienced any pressure to look a certain way so that you are taken seriously?
100%. So even, I guess, probably the best thing to do is highlight like my first introduction essentially into bodybuilding. So I'm probably one of these really strange people though that loves the sport purely because I can see like the anatomy side of things and the physique, and it just, to me, it's just really cool. Like, I love it. But my first time I decided to do a prep literally would have been 6 or 7 years ago now. And it was at a time when like flexible dieting wasn't as prominent as what it is now. And like my diet for 30 weeks was essentially like white fish and green beans. Like, I still cannot eat basa. Like, if I see basa, I vomit in my mouth level of I can't eat it. So it's, you know, and I got stuck into a cycle there where for whatever reason at the time, like I was a lot younger, a lot more immature. And I was like, I essentially cultivated my own eating disorder because I was eating this way through the week. I had no knowledge around the nutrition and the macros and the balance that was healthy. And so in the weekend I would bake, and like a cheat meal would start off as like breakfast after boot camp. And then I'd be like, okay, now let's have cheap lunch. Let's do some baking. Let's bake a banana bread. Let's eat the whole banana bread. And then let's go out to dinner, you know? So like, that was my cycle. And then on a Sunday, I'd try and work out how much exercise I needed to do to kind of counteract all of what I'd eaten. But a huge component of that came down to the fact that I just didn't know any better. I didn't know how to work out my energy expenditure. I didn't know how to work out my calorie intake, outtake. I didn't know how, at the time, a lot of those were diversion tactics for things that were maybe going on or not able to realize things. So there was definitely that pressure then to look a certain way, because when you're coming, like, it's still confronted with us now, where we're like, through our Instagram feeds, through our social media, like even people that are well-meaning, you still look at it and go, okay, so this is obviously how I'm meant to look to be taken seriously. You walk around any health and fitness expo and it's still like, it's getting better, like it's getting way better. And we saw that at the Melbourne Health and Fitness Expo, but it's still so powerful. And I think powerlifting is really powerful, like no pun intended in that sense, because the focus for a lot of women, and martial arts as well, a lot of the focus on women turns around to looking at yourself as an athlete essentially, and looking at what you can do, not necessarily how you're looking. But I mean, even that in a sense comes with its own level of problems, if you will, because the extreme end of powerlifting, like any sport, is not healthy. Like the body composition, a lot of the things that go on is definitely not the epitome of health, but then no extreme sport is. So so there's still that problem there.
Yeah.
But even now with the magazine, because I'm around women who are better role models, but they're still fit and healthy. Like our recent cover model, like she's tiny, but she still has, like, she's still smart, she's still switched on, she's still a hard worker. But it's at the point where you can't compare yourself to that person and be like, okay, this is the normal, because it's not. It's another sort of less extreme, but still the other end of the scale to what we're talking about with like powerlifting or martial arts or any kind of mainstream sport.
Although I've never met her in real life, so I can't say how tiny she is, but
depending on when this is going to air to, we can't say who it is yet. Another 2 weeks. So if you know, it's just,
I don't. I thought you were talking about the launch issue of the magazine.
Oh, Steph. Oh, no, not Steph. She's like, she's a totally different story. Yeah, totally different body shape.
Yeah. No, I loved that you chose her for the cover, because she wasn't who would normally be on the front of a magazine. She looks great, although that's subjective, of course, but she's curvy and she looks like she enjoys a piece of cake after dinner. Like, she doesn't look the extreme of anything. She doesn't look unrealistic or unmaintainable. Or
No,
I love
she
that.
doesn't, but to interject, the frustrating thing for me about like with that was because Steph is amazing. I love her. She's tiny. She's like 4'12", really short. Her and Jamie are good quality human beings, but even she said to me, like, we specifically, we gave her, like, I was very specific, and we're always specific with our front cover model, saying we don't want you to diet for this. We don't want anything of that sort, because it becomes less relatable to the people who are reading it.
Yeah.
And she still said she still tried to actually diet for that shoot, ended up figuring out she had a whole bunch of underlying issues.
Yeah.
But like, she still felt the pressure for that to happen, you know. And yeah, it's a front cover, I get it, and it's very confronting still, but it was still there, which sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's almost consumer driven, but then also like self-inflicted, because consumers get mad at fitness models for doctoring pictures, for trying to look a particular way, for taking performance enhancing drugs and giving off the illusion that they don't take them to look that particular way, and all the rest of it. But then they also like and subscribe and buy products and financially support the same individuals that do it. So it's almost like this, I don't like you for doing this, but I'm going to pay your bills to a lady. And this is almost like this really
contradicting circle.
Yeah, contradicting circle of problems.
Before we go on though, I want to give a quick definition of, because we're talking about what health looks like and what it doesn't look like, I want to give a quick example of health from the Life After Dieting book. We've got Alicia, for those not watching the video of this and just listening. Alicia's holding up her vanilla Diet Coke, or Coke Zero.
Vanilla Coke, no sugar.
Real Coke.
And what I love about that is the ongoing Coke versus Pepsi debate. And we've got Alicia on Team Coke over here. Welcome.
Because I'm not dieting anymore. My taste buds are back to normal.
Yeah.
So now you like bland drinks? Is that what you're trying to say?
No.
No, I've moved away from that. See, that's what happens when I was dieting. I was drinking the Pepsi Max, and now that I'm not dieting, and I realize how shit it tastes.
It's too much. Now, when we think about health, a lot of people think about health as the lack of disease, or they just think about health as physical health. But we can really expand that much further. And from
MNU.
Yeah, so MNU, we pulled that and put it into the Life After Dieting book. We break it down into 6 different categories. The first one being happiness and life satisfaction, physical and mental health, although they're different, meaning and purpose, character and virtue, close social relationships, which also, of course, ties into mental health, financial and material security. I can read. But they all are kind of intertwined, because if we don't have financial security and don't have access to good food, then obviously our physical health suffers, you know, but in some way we need to break it down. So we can see there that physical health is one of the many components that make up health. So let's say that we are physically healthy, we lack disease, and we have energy and things like that, but we have no meaning and purpose. Our mental health is probably going to suffer. We're probably not going to thrive with our close social relationships. And if we think about the purpose of trying to flourish in our health or our health pursuits, it's so that we can be happy, live a meaningful life. And all of these things are, I believe, equally important. I personally would rather be physically ill if I had financial and material security, if I had meaning and purpose, if I had close social relationships. I would choose those things over my physical health. But luckily, most of us are in the position where we don't have to choose, and we can play the balancing act there. And if we are too extreme in our pursuits of our physical looks, and we're trying to be really lean and really muscular, other things are going to suffer. And they do, absolutely. I'm going to say 100% of the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anytime you shift towards an extreme within one facet, or one aspect, I should say, it's always going to come to the detriment of another.
Yeah, I might give an example of my dad. He thinks that in order to be a good father, he needs to financially provide for his family. And he provided. We lived in a 5-story house with a boat, and he was continuing to work and work and work because he wanted more and more money to provide for us. But once we were clothed and fed and the bills were paid, any more money, any much of a larger house, a bigger billiard table didn't make me happier. I missed having a relationship with my dad. I never had that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we can really see that, sure, he was working on his financial security, but what about your relationships? So we really need to play these off each other and realize that health is a broad spectrum, not just the lack of disease.
It's actually really interesting you bring that up though, because of late, like you see so many people talk about like, and it's just relating this back to something I'm experiencing at the moment, like with working through like technically a startup, you see so many people, like you can look at both ends of the extreme for this, and you can see people that are like, you know, you need to be putting in all of these hours, you need to be working, like sleeping like 3-4 hours a night to get this shit done. And then you see the other end of the scale that's like, you know, you need to be going to the gym and eating well and sleeping 8 hours a night. And it's like, well, the challenging thing that I'm finding at the moment is I don't want to, on this hand, I don't want to do that because to that extent, because at the end of that point in time, my relationship with my kids suffer. I become grumpy. I become feral. Like I can't concentrate at work. My productivity drops off. I don't get to the gym. I eat like shit, you know, and my mental health suffers. Yeah. And then on the flip side, it's also not practical for me right now to do that every day because shit changes, especially being in a family. Like nothing is static every single day, and sometimes things require more. But it's like, I think one of the best ways I used to explain it in regards to actually eating or just about anything is looking at things like a pendulum. The further you swing one way, the more it's going to have to swing back the other way, essentially, to try and find some level of apparent balance. Because like anything, as animals, we crave and thrive on that level of balance, and you absolutely cannot operate at that level 100 forever. Absolutely not forever. And you can totally do it for short periods of time, and that's what you're looking at when people going through like preps and things like that. But I guess the really hard thing for so many people is that balance. Like I saw a post today that really pissed me off because it was this person who, like, I really like, he's a really good quality like role model, but he put up a post about a snapshot of their family's day, and he's like, you know, getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning to go to the gym, and then he watches the kids while his wife goes to the gym, and then, you know, this and this and this and this and this at work. And I'm like, but this isn't possible for every person. And from that, essentially, like, it's good to motivate people, but then you push into the shame category, because people, like, you can't obviously take responsibility for someone feeling, to an extent, the shame that they can feel. But do you know what I mean? Like, it's that really fine line between balancing things, and it doesn't always balance, and that's also okay.
Yeah. So are you saying that maybe he was saying that that's what every single day looks like, but really that might just be one really good day in his life that he's highlighted? And
no, it was like an infographic square on Instagram with the times and things, and he was trying to highlight how much he can fit into a day. And I was like, yeah, that's great. Like, that's good for you, and you're really successful, and I support that, and I love that. But it's just not practical for everybody.
Yeah, and that also depends on what you're defining success as too, because success to him is obviously
100%.
But I think this applies to all like different types of things within the nutrition and fitness industry and all the rest of it. One of the biggest things that I think is an issue at the moment is this whole, like, you got to grind both in fitness and in business in order to thrive. It's a very
triggering comment.
It's the whole, like, you know, the Gary V approach, and like, cool, it works, but that dude's also probably going to die at 60. Like, if you look at him, he's aged 50 years in the last 5. And I think the biggest issue is, though, that most people don't take a step back and decide and actually understand, well, one, what is health to you? And then also, what is success to you, both in your physical, social, family, psychological, financial, and all those things that we've talked about before. Because if you don't know where you're going, how the fuck do you set it up to a point where you can actually do it in a manner that is sustainable? It's the same with weight loss. You know,
you've got to have a goal in mind so you can measure your progress towards that goal. Because otherwise, you don't know if
100%
succeeded or not.
And that right there, and I saw Lizzy laughing because I was getting really triggered, because that to me is the one, probably aside from all of the shit information that exists within the industry, that right there is one of the worst things I think that is flowing around. Like, yeah, there are times you have to work hard. Like, I'm absolutely not skirting away from that. But like, I saw, as an example, there's a fairly well-known coach on the Gold Coast who she was like, she tested positive for diuretics last year. And I saw her posting up an infographic, like a post the other day, talking about she's getting up, like she's training twice a day and doing all this shit. And I'm like, but why? Why are you doing this? There is no merit to doing this. And there are so many coaches that still follow that practice and that principle of, I've got to train, you know, you've got to train 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day to achieve results. But why? Tell me why. If you can work at that level for that long, then what you're doing either sucks or you're not doing it properly.
Yeah.
And what other things in your life are suffering because of it? But definitely, if you've got an extreme goal in mind, like a competition, some of those aspects of health do need to take a sideline while you focus on that.
Absolutely.
But for most people, they're just trying to look good naked.
Or even just in a t-shirt.
Or look good in a t-shirt. Well, what's the point if your life is crumbling around you, really? But to pull this back to body image, I can definitely understand, like we touched on, why people feel the temptation to get leaner and be more muscular. But if we're looking at what health is, that being the leanest and being the most muscular isn't really, you can't take a snapshot of that in a picture. I can't ask you to get into your bra and undies, me take a picture, and then I can define your health. That's not the case.
It's a different rating system. Usually when someone gives you 7 out of 10 when you got your birthday suit on, it's usually not got anything to do with your health.
No, that is a different
But apparently on Instagram it does.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So there's lots of, boys as well, but I'm going to say there's a lot of females out there who kind of give in to the temptation to take very sexy photos and call it fitness, even though they're literally in lingerie bent over on the bed. They're not even in the gym. Like it's soft porn, and use it to build a following on social media. For what purpose, I do not know. But really what I love about you, Alicia, is that you don't objectify your body. You don't use sex to help people. What you do is you use your brain and you use like practical things that people can really take away and improve their life. Even though you might be able to get more likes if you were in lingerie bent over. You're pretty sexy, so I'm sure you could. Those people liking and following aren't the ones that are listening to your information. They're looking at your arm.
Not at all. And it's actually really funny because now with the magazine, so like just for some backstory, like for those who don't know about the Strong Woman Project, like so just over a year ago, a friend of mine and I did this like photography project, taking photos of all different shapes of women who lifted weights to share their story, to show that there is no one size kind of fits all image, look, or, you know, for being, I guess, healthy in a sense. But it's also been one of the biggest challenges we have with the magazine, because trying to set out to find women to be a part of our advisory board, for example, like you, Lizzy, that are following those sorts of same principles. And I'm like, if anyone wants to post a photo about themselves because they're proud of it, then great, go for it. Like, I'm the first person to be like, yeah, love it. You know, your ass looks amazing. But it's in context, I think, is probably the piece of this that's missing. And so trying to find women within the industry who were really like fairly intelligent, could provide good quality information, had good personality and good branding, and weren't about that, is actually really, really hard. And even from our end, looking for women from the front cover, where we're wanting to help women. We're wanting to show women that there is more out there than what they think there is, that they don't need to appeal in that way. Like, if it suits them, then fine, they're happy, but there is more out there essentially, and better quality information. And who we put on the front cover really greatly impacts that. And like, we've been approached by quite a few influencers who, like, we don't want to entertain that discussion because of everything that we're talking about, because we're not confident that we want to be aligned with like their principles, or lack of, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, we're not in the 20s as well, you know, so.
No. So me and you would define ourselves as proud feminists. Is that fair to say?
That sounds very fair, yeah.
Okay. So for women out there who think that we're trying to shame women who are putting up their bodies online, that's not at all what we're doing. As people who support women doing whatever they want, we're fine with that. People shouldn't be shamed for their body. But what we're saying is that sexuality isn't the way to help people. We're saying that the way to help people is by, sure, if you want to show off how fit you look or how healthy you look, that's fine. But doing it in a sexual manner is usually done so that you can get more followers. And as women in the industry, it upsets me to know that sexuality has become such a big part of that.
Well, it's almost become the norm in the absence of good quality content that people can learn from. Like, I think the thing that people like, because we've lived in this sort of gamification world now for the last 10 years where people are liking and subscribing and following and all that kind of jazz, and everyone's just a number and trying to achieve this sort of this top of the scale level of followers and all the rest of it. They chase numbers instead of recognizing that the numbers aren't really the important part behind it. Like, they're getting followers from nobodies who provide no value back to the industry. All they are doing is just giving you a sense of satisfaction that you may have made it.
You know,
Absolutely.
Dean and I had a business coach.
Yeah.
And he asked us what our goals were. So he was like, how much money do you want to earn? Like, when can you get this amount of followers? And like, but Dean and I both paused and we were like, oh, the numbers we want to focus on is how many people we can help.
Yeah.
We could have 1 million followers. I don't care. But if we're not actually providing content to help them, like, so we were like, no, we're not setting those targets, which I think was challenging for him because that's usually the framework that he works with.
But it is true, because I even find myself like more power to women for having the confidence to like put themselves out there and wear whatever they want and all the rest of it. Like, it's awesome. But then I also get frustrated because I work alongside very strong women, both from brains and physical, in this industry. I even prep people. And a lot of my messaging is not around like, why do you have to do that? Like, if you want to, cool, but just know that it comes with the potential, I'll say consequence, for lack of a better word, that then if you are trying to portray a message to other people that isn't related to sexuality, then why align it with it?
Yeah.
You know? So it is a real tough one.
It is a really tough one, and I don't think there's any kind of right or wrong answer here. I'm absolutely literally the first person to there should be no shame in us being able to promote our own sexuality and being comfortable in our own sexuality, and none of that is a problem. I have a really good friend who I used to work with a few years ago who she runs nude female yoga and does a lot of things about body empowerment and body positivity, and she does a lot of content producing in regards to that. I love that, but there's nothing overly dirty about what she does, and I think that's probably the best differentiation that I can make. There is an element and a difference between being proud of who you are and your body and what you've worked for and posting imagery and photos about that. There's no shame in that, and that's fine. And if that's what you're looking for, then fucking write it. That's cool. I would be the first person to being go for it. If you want to post a photo in your booty shorts and your bikini because you want people to like it, sweet, awesome, good on you. But I think it's the not even discretionary, but I think it's the passive, subconscious innuendos of the attention seeking that's dangerous. And it's more so, I think about it, it toes a very gray line here, because there's and I don't agree with this, but there's that thinking as well, for women who, this is probably a little bit deep for this, but who have experienced harassment or sexual assault or things, and you get that crowd of people saying, oh, you were wearing it, you were asking for it. And I don't think that at all, and I fucking hate that.
Victim shaming.
But I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not about that. It's just, I think it's more about that we can do more and we can be more. We don't have to walk around in hazmat suits at all. But we can, there is more to us than what the industry is still pushing on us. It is okay to be smart. It is okay to be strong. It's okay. There's a whole Facebook page that I've followed now, and it's called You Look Like a Man. And it's full of comments that women have heard from lifting weights from men. And it's horrible, but funny.
I contribute to that page a lot. I've gotten many comments, even from my own mum.
But it's terrible. And that's the thing, we're still so railroaded by expectations of, you should look pretty, but don't say anything, but don't look too pretty, and, be sexy, but don't look too sexy. But it's I think it's just more what we're trying to say is be confident in the fact that if you are smart, stand up and say something. Don't be afraid to have an opinion and stand out and push back on people because you don't agree with something,
Yeah, and totally. That you don't need to use a fitness picture to portray the depths of your brain.
No, absolutely.
And I think like if here's a hot tip for anyone that's on Instagram that has a large amount of followers but wants to have an influence on the industry for the positive in regards to bringing more and more good quality content, put a question box in your story and see how many people reply.
What sort of question?
Any question. Ask me a question about fitness and nutrition, because even in the guy world, to be honest, this works perfectly too, because I know people that have 25 and 50,000 followers that won't get questions. You know, because they're followed by muscle worshippers.
Because people don't care what their answers
are.
They
just I have friends
that
that have
don't take them seriously.
40,000 followers versus their friend that has 15,000 followers. But if it was to book tickets to talk to them in a seminar and determine who they're going to listen to, they're going for the person with the least amount of followers because they produce the most amount of high quality content. So, like, I think content has to always associate itself at the same time. You can't just go ham on someone's page of just fitness pictures.
Well, I think this comes down to people's why. Like, we're very clear on our why, and it's raising the industry standard and creating positive permanent change. And we can't do that by putting up sexy photos and getting people to like it, because that doesn't achieve why we entered the industry or why we do what we do.
Yeah.
But if people, you know, maybe they're suffering with low self-esteem and they get a pick-me-up from, you know, 200 plus likes or something, then maybe that's their why. They started their Instagram so that they can feel better about themselves. It might just come down to simply just that.
True, but even go for it, Alicia.
I was going to say, my cousin is an influencer in New Zealand. So he actually won, he actually won Mr. Gay New Zealand a few years ago and has like 90,000 followers or something. So because when I went over and saw them last, it was just after Instagram got rid of the visible likes.
Yeah.
And like, he's very aware of the fact that it definitely feathers an aspect of narcissism in his personality. But he said, like, I love seeing the fact that my photos are getting 30,000 likes. Like, I love it. And I was like, it's like yeah, I know, but I love the brutal honesty from him. But it's literally like it's like a drug. Like, it's absolutely like a drug for some, not everybody, but for some of them, seeing that interaction.
What happens
and then on
sorry, you go.
No, I was gonna say he can still see it now, but it just shits him that nobody else can.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, and I found this really interesting, talking to a fairly well-known influencer who does put out good content, is really authentic and real. And she said to me, since the likes have gone off Instagram, where people can't see them, she's getting more because no one can see what's going on with other people liking it anymore. And they're not afraid to like her stuff because other people can't see it. Like, isn't that in itself interesting?
Yeah, totally.
Well, even if I was to look at what kind of people I get respond to a picture of a bodybuilding shot that I've put up versus the people that enter my inbox on a question and answer day, they're two different people.
Into my inbox. I like that.
They just slide in, you know?
They slide in.
They're two different people, for sure.
Right, so who are the people liking your shirtless photos?
Oh, other people within the industry that are just bodybuilding, only care about muscle. They think you look awesome and they've got, you know, enough brain cells to say, yeah, bro. And then the other people are generally like other trainers, other individuals that are trying to better their approach, and they're asking questions that are very specific to upskilling knowledge.
Yeah.
You
know, if there's lots of factors when choosing a coach, and maybe one legitimate thing could be how in shape that coach is, because it at least proves that they themselves can do it. But by the same token, Dean and I talk about it all the time. We know lots of coaches who are very much in shape, but they have no idea like how to guide a client there or what health really looks like, because they just take a lot of drugs, or they train the house down and the rest of their life is crumbling, or, you know, they're a quick gainer or whatever it might be. So even though it may be a factor in determining what coach to choose, it's definitely not the only thing we should be looking at. We should be looking at, is their content actually helpful and understandable? What's their communication skills like? Are they accessible? Do they give a shit?
Well, I think the only thing lean proves is that you have the ability to suffer enough through hunger. That's really all.
Absolutely. Any idiot can cause anyone else to lose weight. Like, that's the easy part. Like in theory, hands down. But I think it's like you just said, it's the awareness of the health factors. It's the awareness of someone's mental state. It's the awareness of like the context that a lot of the principles are being applied in. And just because someone has been like, and this is kind of reflective back to powerlifting for this instance, just because someone has been successful or coached other successful athletes doesn't mean that they are, I was going to say doesn't mean they're good, but good is also a very subjective term, because just because, like, say, for example, within powerlifting, just because you have clients that win comps or do really well, does that essentially make you a good coach? Well, yes, if you are going to someone to do those things, yeah, absolutely. But again, at what risk? Like, I can think of quite a few coaches who, like, from my perspective, I would not necessarily categorize them as safe or, you know, with someone's best interest at heart. And I've seen some unfortunate transformations with, like, female clients, for example, where they've been peddled a lot of peds that are not necessarily good long term.
Performance enhancing drugs for our listeners who don't know what PEDS is.
No, thank you, Lizzy. I didn't think of that. But it's, you know, and again, is it relative to that person's goals? Yeah, maybe. Has that person gone to that coach and said, I want to win at all costs? Maybe. But then at what point does that make that person a good coach? Are they a good coach because they're doing what the client has asked? Yeah, for argument's sake, absolutely. But in my perspective, from my point of view, that doesn't make someone necessarily a good coach when it's done at the loss of a multitude of other health factors.
We actually fix some people who have really been ruined by other coaches. They come to us and they say, man, like, I've lost my period, or guys say, like, can't get my dick hard, or whatever it is. Like, there's clearly some serious health consequences to what's gone on, or their marriage has broken down, or this or that. So like you said, yeah, they might have got the result they wanted, but they didn't foresee all of these other things. And sometimes sacrificing some elements of health is necessary, but too often people sacrificing things that are unnecessary. The females don't need to take that much drugs, or the guys should have reversed much faster, or we really need to consider that to be a good coach. And I don't think just the end result on one day determines a good coach.
I think the message here is kind of like, most people look at the result and then associate the result as in how they look like, whether it's just a bikini picture, a dude in his trunks, whatever it may be, as a proxy for whether or not that person knows what they're talking about. But like, I know plenty of fitness competitors that I've either spoken with, consulted with, or coached, that on the outside, on their Instagram, look like they're living an amazing life. And I know their shit is just messed the fuck up behind the scenes. Yeah. So instead of looking at people's pictures and them as individuals as motivation, ask them questions for content to provide you with education to improve your life. And if you can't get that from that individual, it's likely all they're in it for is likes, double taps, and love hearts.
Yeah.
But if they're there to provide actual content for you, that's where health comes from. It's from the information, like we said, not from the picture.
You know what, actually, that's so funny you say that, because online we have some friends in real life, in relationships, and we know they're on the verge of breaking up, or they're fighting all the time, or they're having affairs on each other. And then they go and post.
Who was it?
I'm not going to name and shame on the podcast. You know who you are if you're listening. And then online, man, you would think they're so in love and the honeymoon has never ended.
It's amazing, hey?
Yes. Oh my God. Dean and I never talk about each other online. I'll put up a joke about him.
Please don't die, because I don't want to do the car rego.
Yes, yes, stuff like that. Like, I need you around to do my tax, don't die. But we have a great relationship. So the same can go for Instagram. It's the highlight reel of someone's life, or someone's life is falling apart and they're trying to hide that so badly by making it look the opposite.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think a really good way to summarize and to back up what you're saying as well is it's almost like when you have a conversation with someone and they say something that you feel triggers you personally, because it's usually an area that you're particularly sensitive about. So I think within, like, social media and that the need to substantiate certain areas is probably because you're not feeling the fulfillment that you need to get from those areas. I'm the same as you. I think I post about Stu maybe on his birthday, if I remember. No, I'm kidding. But I don't need to. Like, I really don't, because at the end of the day, the only person that really matters about that is, like, Stu and the boys. And, you know, every now and then I don't think I've done a post for a while. Maybe it was when I finished competing. But, you know, like, I don't feel the need to substantiate that from complete strangers, because I can provide myself with my own level of gratification and comfort and know where I am as a person, and that I need that. And you know what? It's okay if you don't, but finding healthier outlets for it is probably a better solution than, you know, seeking it from thousands and thousands of strangers online that really mean 5/8 of fuck all.
Yeah, you know, when you break it down like that, it's quite odd that people announce to the world how much they love their partner. Like, why does that matter that everyone
Especially
knows?
if you live together.
Well, you can tell me to my face.
Absolutely.
It's weird, man.
You need to, like, we're laying in bed not talking and you're telling everyone how great our relationship is and we're like not even.
Well, I can't tell
back
you.
to back, yeah.
It's too personal. It is a really
I think
thing, eh? Like, it's happened a lot. It's fucking weird. I've never got it.
Yeah.
But
neither do I. And to me, it's a really big red flag as well. Like if someone's posting a lot about something like that, to me, I'm like, what is actually going on here? Like, what are you hiding? What are you hiding behind, essentially?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I feel like Instagram highlight reel is almost like, even we talk about, like, you know, what are the expected outcomes of a given, say, nutritional protocol? There's a bell curve that everyone sits within. Most people sit in the middle. There's a couple of people that are on the left, a couple of people on the right, and then there's people that sit outside that bell curve. And it's kind of like anyone that's going hard at any particular principle of life are generally the ones that have got a lot of other shit going on. And
that's
they're not
to say that we think your relationship shithouse if you tell social media it's great.
No, absolutely.
But more so if we're like
Extremism.
honing in on that one, extremism. Yeah. If there's a post, you know, every few days or, you know, every other week, like, do you really need to tell everyone that often? But anyways, the take-home messages that we're trying to put forward here is we don't need to look a certain way or tell everyone how fantastic our health or body or relationship is to actually be healthy, because we can't see what health looks like. Sure, we can see if somebody is 150 kilos, there may be some issues going on. So certainly, visually, we've got some suggestions there. But, you know, if we're within the range of body fat, you don't have to be impressively lean. You know, even up to fairly chubby, there can be a spectrum of health.
Absolutely.
And typically, if somebody looks like they're just about to jump on stage and they're really muscular and they're really lean, that's actually a suggestion that they're not healthy at all. Their body fat levels are too low. The amount of time and energy they need to put into training means they're sacrificing maybe, you know, the hours that they need to be successful at their job, their relationships. Yeah,
the irony here is that those that look apparently the fittest from a body fat point of view on social media are likely going to be the unhealthiest in as many of those little different parts of what we said health was at the beginning of this podcast. So don't use them as your representation or your
absolutely go-to. And if you look at the different health factors as little, like as almost like jars of pebbles. So at one point in time, to achieve one thing, you're going to have to take pebbles from one jar to fill up the other one and then potentially move them back again. But if you're talking about Comprep Lean, you're going to have to literally take most of the pebbles in all of the other jars, which is family, friends, work, you know, life, mental health, and you're going to have to overfill one jar to get there. And basically at the detriment of everything else. And at some point, you've got to put those pebbles back to get back to a level of normality and health.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but Dean got some comments when he was at the peak of his leanness coming into his show, like, man, you look so good. You must feel on top of the world. Did you get those sorts of comments when you were coming into your show?
Oh God, yeah. And everyone's like, oh my God, you look amazing. You must feel so good. And I'm like, man, I can't even get my ass out of bed properly. Like, let alone, like, I'm lucky if I can string a sentence together, let alone, like, you know, feeling really good. And it's one of those things, like, it's the things you have to, like, the things you have to sacrifice to get to that level. Like, you've got to love it. Like, you've really got to love it.
Or you've got to have a lot of self-hatred. One of the two.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
But it's true. Like, I'm like, walking is now a choice that I have to make. Like, to look like this, it's no longer a matter of just human locomotion. It's a matter of, can I do this? I have.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, here we go. You know.
Now, for those listening who think that we're now saying being lean is unhealthy, again, we're talking about being extremely lean.
Yes.
And the mechanisms behind that essentially. Yeah, we've got this energy balance that we need. We expend some energy, we consume some energy. And to get to that level of leanness, we need to expend far more than we're consuming. And over time, our body goes through what we call negative metabolic adaptations, where things occur to slow or slow down, that weight loss process just as a survival mechanism to avoid starvation. So
look,
sorry, you go.
Sorry, keep going. No. I was just going to say, to back up what Dean was saying about the walking thing, like, I used to put off going to the toilet for as long as I could, because, like, walking to the toilet was hard. Do you know what I mean? Like, but the thing is, like, I didn't even diet excessively hard, you know? Like, I had a really, really good coach who looked out for me. And but even in that point, and like it gets like it's a choice.
Yeah, totally. So man, the first things that we see when people start to go into a pretty harsh deficit is that, let's say they're averaging 10,000 steps a day, not trying, just generally walking around doing the grocery shopping. When they go into a deficit, that might naturally just decrease to 7,000, 8,000 steps. So all of a sudden they're affecting the calorie balance, no longer in favor of fat loss. So this is just one mechanism. That's because they're feeling fatigued and their body is trying to slow them down. But also hunger hormones are up. So you're now fighting these cravings and your sleep starts to suffer and all these things. So for those listening and are really confused at why you might be feeling your shittest when you're looking your best, this is why.
Yeah. So don't seek the extreme look as your reference or measure for
as your
health.
measure of normal.
Yeah.
And I think also, and I see this again and again, still having a lot to do within bodybuilding, like you see competitors who start storing massive like galleries or following all these pages on Instagram of like food pages. Like it's very normal when you get to that level of leanness for some level of that. But I think it's also to an extent glorified, and the glorification of having like a truckload of donuts when you get off stage and this and that, like it shouldn't be put up on that much of a pedestal. Like it absolutely should not. And I think so many people don't realize the potential risks of going down that path and putting that behavior on a pedestal, because people are like, it's one donut, it's okay, but it's not. It's the glorification. Yeah, absolutely. And it's the glamorification of traditional and non-traditional shit and good and bad food, you know?
Yeah, I fucking hate hearing clients that are being rewarded, air quotes, by their friends with not just a donut post-comp.
Oh my God, yes.
Guess what, man? Comp finished. Here, I bought you 7 donuts. I'm like, when in any time in the world would you give your friends 7 donuts? Like, and why do you think that this time makes it okay to do that to them? And like, fuck you for trying to derail their opportunity just to get back to life normally.
Yeah, when they're primed for weight gain, when they're at their hungriest.
Not even that.
Absolutely.
So, my final message for this podcast is, if you're a friend of a friend who competes, help them out of their fucking diet. Don't derail them by buying them a bunch of fucking calorically dense food. It's just like, you don't
eat the food for them.
Don't treat your friend like that. It's fucking weird. Again, like it's an odd thing to do.
Indeed.
But anyway.
Indeed it is.
All right, let's move into the fun rounds.
Yes, moving into our segments.
So, Alicia, we have 2 little segments we get people to help people that are listening out with. They're called listeners. And the first one is if you have anything to add that you think is worth sharing.
Don't be afraid, or actually probably a couple of things. Like, don't be afraid to ask why. Like, I know there is this whole mentality about listening to what your coach says and following what they say and trusting them. Ask why. And if someone cannot give you a valid response, you've got to ask yourself why, because that is a massive red flag. Anyone who is a good coach should be able to provide you with good quality information and evidence to back it up. And the only way that we will make any change in the industry is encouraging people to ask why.
Yeah.
And I think something else I'd add too is, like, I've just been reading. So one of the best pieces of advice I like that really stuck with me was, whenever I'm in the car now, or like anything that's dead time, essentially like that, use it to the best of your abilities. Like I said, I smash Audible. I love Audible so much because I can back up books and listen to them whenever I'm in the car. Because I know everyone loves podcasts, but I'm really time poor and I love reading, so listen to them. I'm just finishing a book by Brené Brown, who is phenomenal. Cannot recommend her enough. And then the next book I'll move on to will be something totally different.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm also loving audiobooks. I have this rule for my audiobooks so I've bought and read some really thick books, and goddamn, it takes a long time to get through. So I like to do the really big books on audio. So if a book is 5 hours or less, I'm just going to read it. But for the really lengthy books, I can absorb it much better if I get through it quickly.
Speed it up.
Yeah. So that's my rule for audiobooks. Okay, cool. I love that. So what was the book that you recently read that you said you can't recommend her enough?
Hang on, let me look it up, because I was listening to it on the drive back today. I've read Daring Greatly, and listened to Daring Greatly, and that one was really awesome. I think her one, this one is more about vulnerability and shame, and it's called The Power of Vulnerability. And it's something that I really have struggled with in the past, is being able to like turn up and lean into being in those moments of needing to be vulnerable, because I'm always of the like, and this is no bad thing to my mum, but my mum was always, you know, always presented to me that she had everything together and everything was fine. And so now I kind of don't have any middle ground for being able to put my hand up and say, like, I'm not okay, or this is what's really going on. And it's very easy to default to that situation where everything is okay. And I'm learning very fast over the last sort of 6 months to a year, the importance of having those authentic conversations with people and saying, do you know what, like I've fucked up here, or I'm really struggling, or this is what's going on, I really need your help. And being able to do that has been really tough. But books like Brené's have been, she's amazing. She's so easy to listen to and so easy to engage with. And I think so many people probably experience the same challenges.
Where they feel like their life has to be like the highlight reel of their Instagram.
So the power
Absolutely.
of vulnerability. Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Love it. Now, I would like for you to share with us an embarrassing gym moment.
Oh my God, an embarrassing gym moment. Actually, I have a couple. So when you've been coaching and the best part is when the gym is full and you get up and you smash your head on the barbell, and because you've totally forgotten where it is. Misloading bars. This is a really good favorite pastime of mine, when you go to unrack something that's completely misloaded, like 20 kilo plate difference, and you lose plates off the side of a squat bar. That one's always that's a total favorite of mine.
I'm not training.
Like, how did you fail that 40? Oh, it was 60. Cool.
That's so
yeah, exactly.
Do you tell
those
them?
are probably my I'm a constant achiever in those zones for repeat offender.
Yeah, at least you're consistent.
Is that misloading for yourself or misloading for clients? Both.
That would be both. That would be very much both. And friends.
When clients have been misloaded, do you tell them?
Yeah, because I'm usually like dying of laughter, because I'm like, I've fucked up here and you've still done it.
That's awesome. So that's a win anyway. All right. So the final 3 questions of the podcast. First question, we'll go with the fun one. If you were to be arrested and nobody knew why, what would your family and friends believe you did wrong?
God, I feel like my first running naked down the street potentially. I don't know.
That's what Dalton said.
You're the second nudist.
Dalton said that too.
Don't ever drink with Dalton.
I don't know. Road rage is a bad one, because there's been so much shit around road rage at the moment. I'll stick with the nudity one. That one's good.
Safe road rage.
Safe road rage. Yeah.
Verbal road rage. All right. You and Dalton should have a drink or two together and see what happens.
Or potentially not.
Yeah. Maybe we'll keep you two apart. Now, if you could solve any mystery, anything at all, what would it be?
Ooh. So like the first thoughts that pop into my head are like all the like the normal ones, like who shot JFK? Was it really a conspiracy? Who killed Marilyn Monroe? Ooh, that's a really good one. Or like the Twin Towers.
Yes.
Like, I'm not a massive conspiracy theorist. Like, I'm not a tinfoil hat flat earther, but it would be like, I think some of those ones would probably be
it doesn't
really
all add up there, does it?
Yeah, some of those are interesting. You know which one that isn't interesting, and I think people are fucking retards, is there's Holocaust
Donald Trump.
deniers. Yeah,
Holocaust
him too.
deniers.
There's Holocaust deniers. Like, what the fuck?
I've just finished reading, highly recommend, on one of the plane trips back from Melbourne, The Tattooist of Auschwitz. If you have not read it, oh my God, amazing. Do you know what? It would, I'm really torn about this answer, because I want to say, as another flip side, and I always thought this even before Mum died and then after she died, like I still stand by this, is, and it's probably not one that everyone would agree with me about, is actually like the cure for cancer. Because I remember Mum and I used to have these conversations as well, because I'm like, at the end of the day, part of it is still, it's our ecological system trying to find that balance to an extent, you know, but it's at the same time, like, so many people suffer from such a shit disease. So potentially, as a side note, something like that. But I think the conspiracy theories are probably are definitely more up there. And Donald Trump, because he's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, he really is. Nobody knows.
That's my trigger.
Let's not go. Third question. It's too late.
Ammo's loaded. The third question.
Third and final is a would you rather.
Yes, it
Would I
is.
rather?
Oh, goodness.
If it's Pepsi and Coke, I'm going to go Coke.
Would you rather be stuck in a banana costume forever or be stuck with those glasses that have the fake nose and mustache attached to it?
100% the fake glasses and the mustache attached to them. That is brilliant.
But
So
people
basically,
make the rules, your own wedding.
you're like Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah.
But that would be amazing. Can you imagine how like practically like logistically difficult being in a banana suit would be? Like you couldn't even go grocery shopping because you'd be like trying to walk around like this all the time. Driving would be a problem. Going to the toilet would be a problem. At least with the glasses, like you can still function.
I will allow you the bum flap on the banana suit.
Well, listen, not a funny story for the gym, but on the banana suit, and we can finish on this one.
Yes.
I once went to a Disney theme party, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I went
Jesus.
as Aladdin because he's a legend, and my friend went as Buzz Lightyear. Now, upon finishing the party, which was a house party, we all decided to go out into West End in Brisbane, and we all wore our costumes. His Buzz Lightyear costume was a zip up from top of crack to shoulder. So it was a full body suit.
From the back.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Now, a man that requires the ability to stand at a trough and pee can't do that in a bodysuit. Especially can't do it well when drunk. So
Not at all.
to take him to the bathroom, I had to unzip him to his ass. He then had to roll it off his shoulders, hand me the suit, and I would stand behind him holding the suit while he basically looked like a 5-year-old with his clothes around his ankles as he peed in the trough.
That's a good
And I
one.
just
Oh my
stood there
God.
just looking. And I remember this guy walks in and just goes, "Whoa, fuck." Like, I've seen some weird shit on acid, bro, and that's still the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Aladdin holding Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, Aladdin holding Buzz Lightyear's suit while he peed in him.
Now, I will have you know,
At least he wasn't in a Woody costume.
yeah, I would have been very drawn to you that night because as a little girl, I always thought Aladdin was the sexiest cartoon man alive. And I was always so jealous of Jasmine because she got to be the girlfriend of Aladdin. I don't know what I saw in Aladdin, but he was so dreamy.
Is there a name for people that are into cartoons?
I'm not anymore.
Probably.
Child.
There would be.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
it's
the
got to-
Japanese are
would
into
have to be.
animation, not into cartoons.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm past that stage now. So Aladdin is not allowed in the bedroom.
No, I agree. It's definitely.
On that note, thanks for listening, everyone. And where can people find you, Alicia, if they wanted to track you down to, I don't know, hear more about the magazine, which I think is a really awesome contribution for the industry. So thank you for your work there. A lot of
Thank you for contributing.
magazines. Yeah, no, my pleasure. Yeah, so I have a regular column in the Strong Fit magazine, part of the Strong Camp, it's called. So every release I write on a particular topic to do with training. And what I love about it is I'm not asked to promote any products. I'm not asked to have any limitations. I just get to give like the raw truth and raw science. They're not trying to push any sales of supplements. So what I am actually writing in the magazine is just things that I think will be helpful for people who are reading. And that's what the whole magazine is. I think you mentioned to me in private chat conversation that you aren't accepting promotions of products that you don't believe to have scientific backing. And that is rare,
100%.
really rare to find.
Yeah, we do have like almost like a little blacklist essentially for products that we won't take on board.
Quick.
What was that?
Waist trainers. I'll help you out. What else can we
shame.
get? Cayenne pepper,
There's another-
detox diet. Fuck you.
In
what else?
isogenics. Fuck
Isogenics.
you.
Jump off a cliff.
Herbalife, all of those guys. So one of the things that we're trying, like one of our main goals that the editor and I have with the mag is that we really are trying to bring more of science, like more science to mainstream, if you will. So all of the things that we're trying to do is actually provide a proper vehicle for women within the industry and men, I guess, because a lot of the articles are pertinent to men as well, where they can read information that is verified, it is validated, it has come from really reliable sources. And like we try really hard with a lot of our sources to ensure they are, like I vet a lot of them with Caitlin, to make sure that I know that they are good quality people. And if I can't vet them, I ask people that I know and respect who can vet them to make sure that we are providing like the best quality we can, essentially, with the mainstream publications. So
if
that
you
is
were
our
to
goal.
accept Herbalife and Isogenics, I'm sure you would be financially rewarded for that. So hats off to you for not doing that in the name of your why, which is having a positive impact on the industry.
But where can people find the magazine?
Or you.
So,
or you.
Or me. So I'm on Instagram. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm just Alicia Fistonich at Instagram, on Instagram. The mag is Strong Fitness Mag _AU on Instagram, and on Facebook it's just Strong Fitness Mag AUS. So they're probably the two of the best channels. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and so is the magazine. And to buy the magazine, you can find it through Nutrition Warehouse and through all major news agencies, and on our website, which is strongfitnessmag.com.au.
Awesome. Love it. All right, guys. So we'll wrap it up there. Reminder that the Life After Dieting book is locked and loaded. So that's aimed at people who have already lost the weight they wanted to lose or gained, and are looking to maintain their results while still, I guess, giving contributions to other aspects of their health. We've got our research review, we do one-on-one coaching, we do consultations. So you can check us out on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and the podcast.
That's YouTube, not YouTube.
I didn't say YouTube.
No, you didn't, but just for those that are playing at home that do say that.
Yeah, I know you're not allowed to follow us because I don't like YouTube.
Yeah, weird.
Unacceptable. So is Pepsi Max drinking, but you know.
And
Agreed.
we're just about to turn off the recording.
All right, thanks everyone. Until next time.
Thanks, Alicia.